I think it's important when you guys are buying materials to help you determine the quality of your oil paint. I want to show you how to test the quality of oil paint. And one of the best indexes of the quality of paint is how much pigment is in it. So here's a chart where I tested nearly all of the commercially available brands of cobalt blue. And the way I tested it was there's two squares for each brand. The top square is that brand thick to transparent, see how it dries down. And the bottom square is 50% of that cobalt blue brand plus 50% Old Holland titanium zinc white. Each time the same white so that it gives the best idea of how much pigment is in there. You want to keep the white the same, so that's my control group. So what this tells me is the bluer the bottom square, the more pigment that the paint has in it. And the reason that that affects your painting is because if you have paint that's stronger, you have the option to use less paint. If you have to get your paint to sort of medium thickness, then it's going to kind of limit the way your painting can look. Also, paint that's stronger tends to mix more cleanly. So you'll notice there's not a drastic difference in a lot of these colors. A lot of them are pretty consistent. There's just a few weak spots. So I'm showing you this not to overwhelm you with options, but more importantly to show you how I tested the quality of the paint so you can test it for yourself. And there are some good affordable brands. We'll take a closer look at the chart and I'll show you. So here's a very close look at the chart, and Old Holland, you'll notice, is an expensive brand. Some of these are a lot less expensive. M. Grand is a very inexpensive brand. Talon's Rembrandt is inexpensive. Winsor Newton's kind of a little more expensive. Here's an overview of the whole chart. You'll notice some of the spots, like that Charvan, is pretty weak. That's not a cheap paint, and it's a lot more expensive than some of these store brands like the Blick store brand, and it's also a weaker paint. So the price of the oil paint isn't always the best index of its quality. The M. Graham is inexpensive and very good. A lot of the store brands, Blick, Utrecht, are all pretty decent brands. So if you're looking for a good balance of affordability and quality, those would be good. Also, Gamblin is a good, dependable brand. And I just want to help you make an informed choice about this stuff. Actually, let's take a look at white too, because one of the things about white paint is how white does it stay. You can see some of these got pretty much like buttermilk. So I made this chart just by taking each brand of white, labeling it and putting it on there thick to thin, and then letting it sit over time to see how white it stayed. So here's Gamblin. Gamblin's a very reputable company. Most of their colors are great. You can see it looks a little bit like buttermilk. They're titanium yellowed quite a bit. Blick is pretty inexpensive, stayed really white. A lot of these brands are just fine. Michael Harding is good. A lot of the less expensive brands are going to serve you really well. You'll notice also I have different kinds of white on here. The flake white means it's lead, which yellows a lot more. For this class, I recommend titanium white. And you can see there's a lot of brands that are inexpensive that stay very white. So this is really just to show you, because it's one of those things that since you mix white with a lot of colors, it makes sense to have a white that stays as light as possible. So I hope this was useful for you and helps you make an informed choice when you're buying your paint.